Are you a woman standing at a crossroads, eager for change? It's time to connect with your authentic and empowered self at Boss Leap. Join Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker in this empowering community where real-life stories of courageous and talented women inspire and motivate. Engage in honest conversations that foster well-being, drawing from our own journeys. Let us guide you toward profound growth and transformation in both your personal and professional life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker.
Hello, and welcome back to Boss Leap. I am Dr. Angela Walker, along with my co-host, the lovely Dr. Sylvia E. Morris. And today we had the pleasure of speaking with Cecily Welch. She is a CPA, certified financial advisor, lots of letters behind her name. But she is the owner of Welch Financial Advisors and gave us just so much information and practical information to take with us today in terms of how to plan for life in general. And I think, Sylvia, one of the things we can talk about just briefly is our own personal experiences with estate planning, and more so, I think, because we are in this sandwich generation of taking care of our elders.
Absolutely.
And what our experiences have been. And I'll let you go first and maybe give a little bit of what it's been like with Uncle William.
Yeah, I'm so excited that Cecily started talking about estate planning and kind of couched it as, what do you want done with your stuff when you're gone? Because oftentimes people think of estate planning a lot differently, and you get stuck and you're afraid to move forward because who wants to kind of think about their ultimate demise?
Yes.
It has been an interesting journey. I know that you two have an elder in your life, and just starting the conversations and getting people to move forward in a timely fashion. I have had to really lean into my own personal compassion, and also really just knowing, okay, this is a goal. It's going to get done. My timeline and my uncle's timeline are two different things. And sometimes we just have to come back around to the conversation. Again, just a tiny little pearl. I was there recently, and I had been talking to him about having the housekeeper come. Not that his house was dirty, but just I'm like, hey, it's going to help you. They're going to do a deep clean. I have a housekeeper. She's quite helpful for me in kind of keeping my house maintained. So the housekeeper came once. He did that for me. And then he was like, oh, I'm just going to see how it goes, to see how I feel. And when I spoke with the care manager, she said, well, he's only going to do it when you come. And I'm like, I'm not going to fight that fight. But please talk to us about your journey with estate planning with your mom.
Yeah. So I think the way I'll just backtrack a little bit with my dad before he passed, several years before he passed, he brought us this huge binder with all of his information in there. And
organization.
Every time my dad was ex-Air Force or Air Force man. And so he was, in that way, he was very organized. And he was just very adamant about keeping things updated. So he would say, "Did you get that piece? Did you get that new piece of mail in the mail? Put that in your folder. Put it in your folder." And so I didn't. I mean, I was very grateful for what he was doing for me, but I didn't understand the weight of what he had done until he passed. Because in that folder, there was an outline of everything I needed to do. I needed to call the firm that he had used, and so they offered, it's estate planning, so they did everything for him. But then they do everything for the family as well, so help to kind of take you through that process. I didn't have to go to probate because he had put things in a trust. And he had actually, had used them for some financial planning. So that being said, when I was just grateful because it was such a huge gift when you are grieving to have, number one, what that person wants, to know what they wanted.
And to make clear decisions. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that, and I'm the only child, so it wouldn't have been, as difficult if there were 5 kids making, hard decisions, but nevertheless, it was easy. So because my dad trusted this firm, it was easy for me to say, I said, Carl, if he trusted him, I'm just going to use them. And so we created a trust for ourselves, for our family, and so for our girls. And basically, I've got that same binder for them. So transitioning into my mom, it's been a different journey.
But your mom and dad are different people, so we would expect it to be a different experience.
Very much so, very much so. And so for the longest, my mom had talked about, I need to do a will. I need to do a will. The kind of like what a lot of people do. And she, as you know, she's in Texas and I'm here in Georgia, but I am an only child and she has no siblings either. So it was just me. And for the longest, it was, I need to. And then so finally she came to a point where I said, well, what if I can set things up and go with you? And that was the impetus that she needed to actually get things done. And what I realized over this, it's been 10 years since I've been trying to get my mom to Georgia, which sounds like it's actually, with prayer.
We're not going to quite talk about it yet.
Yeah. Anyway, I learned, I'm not going to make this a whole episode, but what I've learned is all the emotions, some of which you mentioned is compassion, empathy, patience. And it's a huge process for a lot of people. And when they've not had the example, for me, I had the example of what happened with my dad. And that's all that I know is a positive outcome of how things could happen. But I don't think a lot of people were taught to do the estate planning. And even as Cecily mentions, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Right. It's still important to have those things in place. So yeah, I think the importance is just to be patient as much as possible and try to empathize where an elder might be coming from. And a lot of it can be overwhelming, and it can be, promote feelings of fear. And so maybe acknowledging some of those things, which I have, has been helpful in moving the process along. So I am so grateful. Yes. Absolutely. I'm also grateful for having you and my other co-authors, just women that are going through the same processes to know that I'm not in it alone.
You certainly are not. And I will say when my mom died, I was in my mid-20s. I was in med school. Yeah. And now I appreciate how organized she was. At the time I did, but when you're young, you have no idea.
No idea.
All her stuff was in a trust. There was a binder, or, I knew where everything was and who I needed to call and all of those things. So I was able to kind of navigate that in my 20s. And that was a huge gift. Yes. And like you, I'm an only child. So in some sense that makes it easier. But when I was younger, it felt harder because again, those are all the decisions that I had to make. Yeah. And she really did set me up wonderfully to make it as easy as transition it can be, when you lose your mom at a much younger age. Cecily talked about not only estate planning, but wealth and a lot of time on entrepreneurship. Yes. And we are excited for everyone to listen to Cecily Welch, Certified Financial Planner. And the next voice that you will hear is Cecily Welch. Welcome back to Boss Leap. My name is Dr. Sylvia Morris, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Angela Walker. And today we have a fantastic guest on everything money. So we want to welcome Cecily Welch, Certified Financial Planner, to Boss Leap. Welcome, Cecily.
Thank you. I appreciate both of you all having me. I'm excited to be here.
We are
Thank
super excited to have you here because you are a money guru. So we're going to get started right off the bat and ask you, what did you want to be when you grew up?
That is an odd question because it has nothing to do with what I'm doing now.
Well, we want the tea here on Boss Leap.
So I will be truthful. I had every intention on being an actress or a dancer of some sort.
You're the second person.
Oh,
wow.
on the same day. Oh my goodness.
And I love the arts. I love performing, etc. And eventually came to the conclusion that I am not creative. You can put something on me. Like even when I danced, I would dance and I was great. I loved it. I would be in multiple pieces. But you don't ask me to create something. That wasn't how I made. But arts only survive because they get money. So
yes.
I support several nonprofits, and having that lens that values that type of work is really very helpful. My brother says that I'm the hippiest capitalist he's ever met. And he is 100% accurate because I'm like, it's all about the money. I can think that's the most beautiful thing in the world, but that person has to eat. Somebody got to pay him. How is that going to happen?
Right. That's a well-balanced woman. That's what it sounds like to me. So how did it turn into finance then? How did you get to, and you are a CPA, right? Certified public accountant. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Certified public accountant, CFP, certified financial planner, and a PFS, which is a personal financial specialist, which is financial planners that can only be a CPA. That is only available for CPAs.
Okay. So all the hats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a couple acronyms.
Okay.
Couple letters behind my name. And how I got into the accounting world, I have a story. So I have this story I told when I was first coming out of college and looking for a position. And it was all about intent. And that was my plan. And this is what I knew I wanted to do. I researched my college. And then I have the story that is accurate, more accurate, that I tell to young people starting out, which says that my career path looks extremely linear. It looks like a lot of affirmative choices. It was not at all. I chose my university because I liked that they were very pragmatic, and I'm pragmatic. They didn't just say, well, great. They said, this is what you're going to need to learn in school.
Didn't you go to NCAT?
Yes, I went to North Carolina. When I applied as undecided. And I had a good GPA, and I called the school. They said, the only school with money is the business school. Okay. So I looked at a list of business schools. I said, I like math. And I checked accounting. That's how I
love it.
Wow.
Okay.
I stayed in it because I was the only one not dropping classes. I was like, why do you keep dropping? It still wasn't really intense.
Because it was hard, Cecily.
Clearly.
To some.
But I didn't find those things. I mean, I found it to be a challenge, but not an insurmountable one. And what's really odd is 20 years later, I went back. They were honoring one of my old instructors. And I said, hey, Dr. HQ, I'm Cecily. Do you remember me? And she goes, yeah, you're the only person in my tax class who got an A without a curve. I was like, what?
Wow.
So I was so disappointed that you didn't take tax number 2. Well, tax number 2 wasn't required. I'm trying to graduate. And so the fact that I ended up in this profession, specializing in tax compliance, how to apply to the real world, she was just like, duh. I said, why did you tell me that? She said, like,
right. She saw it.
Right. Exactly. And she had a point. I probably would not have listened back then. So I was just like, I'm trying to get out of here, get a job, pay some bills.
Wow.
Wow. So you work with a wide range of clients. For those of your clients, I'm certain they are all financially successful, but there's gradation of success, and I'm sure there are people who are uber successful. For those who may struggle a little bit, how does that distinguish them from those who are a little bit more successful?
That's a great question, Sylvia. I think the common thread of those who are financially successful is calculated risks. So whether they're an executive, whether they've invested in something, however they're making their money and their wealth, they've done a calculated risk. So making the decision that if I've got 80% of the information, I got to make a decision, because once I have 100%, it's too late. That opportunity is gone.
Yes.
that opportunity is gone. And when I say calculated risk, that's as opposed to there are people who just love each opportunity that comes their way. And you can't be successful doing it that way. Successful people kind of put all their eggs in one basket, or maybe two. And then once the basket's full of doing what it needs to do, then you diversify. And so even using an analogy similar to Jenny Craig works, Weight Watchers works, Nutrisystems works, but not if you do Weight Watchers on Monday, Nutrisystem on Tuesday, and the other one. You gotta,
how about that?
You know, put it in.
Okay. Very good. So, and you have come to this part of your career, you're an entrepreneur, and it's often portrayed as, you know, your overnight success, and you just struck out as a leap of faith. I'm going to do this because I've got my CPA. You're obviously very well versed in the tax law. Was that your experience, that it was just in a leap of faith and you got out there and started your business? Or can you describe maybe what the real process has been becoming an entrepreneur?
Oh, I'm happy to talk on that, Angela, because it's the urban myth and the love story that I always knew what I wanted to do. I always knew I'd be on my own. I am a conservative accountant. I really am in the right field. Okay, so compared to accountants, I am an extrovert. Compared to normal people, I'm not. But within the profession, so I really had every intention on becoming the managing partner of a firm that already existed.
Oh, wow.
I am capable of doing the work and capable of taking time. What's the next step? I'm better at managing people, strategic, and I'm great at educating, speaking, et cetera, and figuring that out and wanting to get there. Actually I was kicked into being an entrepreneur. I could not advance and get where I needed to go and knew where I needed to be. Those opportunities just weren't there. Within a CPA firm, especially the smaller firms, they're partnerships, which means someone has to put their hand out and invite you up. And if that doesn't happen for many different reasons, it doesn't matter that might be what your best fit is. And so I eventually lost patience and was frustrated and said, you know what? I can figure out how to do this on my own. I can't say that it was a fun, planned, intentional, goal, or this is what I was always going to do. I just did not feel like I was in my highest and best use. I was not touching or helping enough people. I was too much of a dog.
I can completely understand. And how was there something? I mean, did you see someone that had done this before, or was there a mechanism in place that allowed you to just jump out there? How did you go about leaving
excellent
corporate?
Question there again. I, still being the conservative accountant, took what was a leap to a really small firm. It was 5 people. Because they had a business plan of, I'm trying to grow to 20 to 50, and I need someone who trains, who thinks strategic, who isn't just trying to tick and tie. But accountants are like other entrepreneurs. They love their baby. And even if we think we are, we're not always open to someone else's growth. So even though we hit every milestone, it was still, their comfort level was just keep doing the work. No, don't grow me any bigger.
Okay.
So I said, okay, time for another leap. And I definitely followed the typical path of creating a CPA firm. There are models out there that are successful that we know what they are. Okay. My hurdle has been that I did not want the traditional type of CPA firm. Okay. So even finding someone to do a website for me was very difficult. I couldn't get them to comprehend. No, I don't just want, you just need people to come in and you're doing their tax returns, right? And you crank, no, I'm not H&R Block. They're great for what they are, but that's not
sure.
And then it was the bigger firms that their whole function is, I need someone extremely wealthy who's going to need me all year long. Right. My niche is or has been, because I'm doing a different leap right now, by the way.
Okay.
In the last
Love to hear it.
My niche had been for the past 10 or 15 years, what I call the upper middle class.
Mm-hmm.
So you're no longer living check to check, but you also don't make enough to stop working.
Mm-hmm.
So the tax law doesn't work in your favor. You're not the working poor, and you're also not wealthy enough to have lobbyist groups on your behalf.
Right.
So serving in that middle of how do I make sure I'm doing what I need to do and that I'm not crazy? Because my first conversation usually with these types of clients is, you're not crazy. Because the first thing they think is, I've got to be doing something wrong. This can't be this hard. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? I'm like, nothing. Usually it's nothing. You are in this stuffy middle. You make too much and not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the laws are just not created for your benefit. And almost once they get to at least understanding that they're not doing something wrong, they can at least move forward. But so no, to answer your question, there weren't a ton of models that way. I didn't want to do a billable hour model, which most CPA firms and law firms do. I wanted to do fixed fee, and I wanted to work with my clients together and enjoy their successes with them.
Love it.
So let's kind of go back to that middle part, or I should say the middle income clients that you work with, if I can do that, say it like that. How do you balance planning for the future, but then living for the day or today?
Have you, are you all familiar with, there's that story or analogy, I'm sure I'm not using the right terminology, of the person walking on the beach and they see just thousands and thousands of starfish?
Yes. Actually, one of our guests talked about that. Jennifer Williams. Yes.
Yeah. I think that is just critical. Is you will help that one. You can help you can't do everything to everybody, and finding that comfort level and realizing that that's not what life is about. You have to do them both. And I think we as women have a really hard time with that. I don't know if you can see that.
So talk about that a little bit more though, Cecily, because
I will.
Skyfall.
Like Let the Sky Fall.
Yes.
I keep this on my desk.
Yes.
And it kind of says you can balance your ideals and still have a fulfilling life. So my perfect example is I'm a tree hugger. I care about the environment. And I drive a gas guzzler, always have.
But you got it, honestly. If I remember, you're from Detroit.
I'm from Detroit.
Okay.
I'm from Detroit.
Yes.
I love a big car. I enjoy them. I think they're fun. If I got to work all day, I'm going to drive something I like. But I also recycle. You should see this big stack of scrap paper near my printer. I print on the second side. I do. Me
too. I mean, I think that's perfectly balanced. Yeah.
Do your part where you can.
Where you can. Do your part
where you can.
Yeah. I talked to my son about, why are you taking 20-minute showers?
They don't. How old is your son?
He's 13.
They don't care about the length of a shower until they are paying their own bill. That it just will never, no matter what you say, till they pay their own water bill. Yeah. Well, that's cool. So tell us, was there ever a moment in your journey, because you obviously have made this transition and been very successful at it. We know that just, personally working with you. But were you ever considering giving up or not pivoting? What kept you going? Because I know that it's an arduous process in entrepreneurship.
Excellent question. And I think this ties into part of what you were asking me, Sylvia, about how do you plan for the future and function today? How do you do self-care? How do you, all those times that things weren't going the way that you wanted to go, and now I'm staying up too late, were always times that I thought, why am I doing this? And this is a common thought and process, and we all think that we're in this alone, because specifically, I don't know when this is going to air, But on April 19th, I am doing a presentation along with some other professionals the presentation is called Moving Beyond Survival. And
Moving Beyond Survival?
Moving Beyond Survival. Yes.
Okay.
So it's Saturday, April 19th from 9 to 2. And it's actually a quarterly series. And it's very much focused on, are you tired of just being tired? There's mental health pieces, there's physical pieces, there's financial health pieces. There's a quote that I've now decided to put in just about everything. It says, look, you're not depressed, you're broke. All this stuff is intertwined, and we like to think of them as silos. So that's why we're doing these types of events. And the times that I thought about, why am I doing this? I need to go do something else. I realized that even when I was working for someone else, I was still putting in the same amount of time. I'm still committed to quality, caring for people, doing what I need to do. I take it as a compliment. The last time I had a full-time job with another company, when I did decide it was time for me to go, I had 3 people come into my office and close the door with tears in their eyes. Saying, please don't leave, because you actually want us to be successful in whatever we want to do. Sure, in our firm, because that's your line, you have to say that. But you really cared about us doing what we needed to do to be successful. So I think what keeps me going is, if whatever I'm doing, I don't want to do it anymore, how do I shift it? So my whole goal in moving forward and in almost any transition I've ever done, some people do it with intent. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. And I think we need to let people know that there's also room for, sometimes you make decisions because you know where you don't want to be. Sometimes I'm going, I ain't doing that, or I don't see that. So we're going to go here. We're going to go here. I'm just getting to the point where I recognize, like I said, the things that I'm good at and capable at. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what I should be doing going forward. And I'm defining it with intent instead of with exception, if that makes sense.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. And can you talk about how you shifted initially from being, I'm going to call it a worker bee or a cog in the wheel, to actually having an entrepreneurial mindset?
That's a great question, Sylvia. I think I've thought quite a bit, and I have a hard time answering that. And I will tell you why. Because the process of planning, being strategic, and looking forward is hindered in a profession that is so detail oriented. So I've been trying to spend more time working on than working in. And
say that again for our audience. I like that.
I've been trying to spend much more time working on my business instead of in my business. That is a challenge when you are in a detailed, deadline-oriented field like taxes that we have no control over.
Sure.
And so even with a team, if a detail is wrong, it matters.
It does.
A lot.
It costs somebody money.
Yes. And costs clients and everything else. And not that anybody's perfect. There's no way we're going to catch everything.
Right.
But as the entrepreneur, the buck stops with me. My name is the one being signed. So my current leap and pivot is teaching and growing the capacity within the field versus me being the one that has to do it. Because no matter how big my team got, I could not get out of the detail. And that was very frustrating. I could not put as much of the entrepreneur mindset hat on that I want to and enjoy. I know that didn't answer your question, but
no, I like that.
And in light of what you just shared, can you expound upon what this new venture is going to look like for you?
Absolutely. So happy to. So like I said, I'm Cecily Welch, the accountant you can understand. And that is actually trademarked, the accountant you can understand. And
Love
it's very intentional because I care about people the world cares about money. So I figured the more people who know about money, the better the world will be. And so this pivot is building knowledge and building capacity. So I will be teaching courses, webinars, et cetera, specifically to nonprofits. Remember, we talked about I used to want to be an artist way back when.
Right.
Yes.
And nonprofits are an area where they are absolutely about to get targeted for compliance people.
Yes.
Yes.
And most people who enter that field, they're entering the field because they want to do the work. They're like, I need to do a what? A who?
And they're do-gooders too.
Right. So speaking, writing, teaching, and on demand and specific webinars within that space.
Love it.
In addition to speaking, writing, teaching, webinars in the space of taxation matters. All of us like to go la, 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 or, well, Warren Buffett did. I don't know what the hell. Can I curse on this thing?
You just did it.
I did. Right?
You're good.
I don't know what Warren Buffett's fact pattern has to do with how you're operating. It's nice to know, but that doesn't fit you. So I'd like to think of it like, okay, Susie Orman talks about investments.
Yes.
Dave Ramsey talks about budgeting.
Yes.
Nobody talks about taxation in English, in that it matters. Anything you care about, I can tell you where it is in the tax law and why. I can give you some language to call your congressman, write a letter, what to pay attention to, what not to. Everything about conservation easements, environmental stuff, tax law, all of it, everything. And over the past 20 years, almost anything that gets passed through the tax law. Nothing else ends up getting passed. So there's so much economic movement that happens in the tax law.
Tax law.
So that's where the pivot is. So not doing the detailed ticking in time. No, I'm not the person to do your return anymore, but I do have connections to firms that that's what they do. I'm happy to help them grow. You know?
Sorry, I'm going to take a little off-centered question here. So my hope of us ever going to a very simplistic tax system is not realistic, is what you're saying.
It is an urban myth.
Society.
It is an urban myth that us in the profession like complexity. We don't either. I would like to be able to plan better and have some certainty when we are talking to people doing financial planning. This profession within some of the silos has spent the past 3.5 years talking to clients about update your estate plan. The laws are going to change and flip. The expiration is the end of 2025 or 26. So tons and tons of time, effort, research, getting clients to make changes, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now we have a new administration that nobody was expecting. That's probably not going to happen. We still can only say probably. We have no idea. And for making it simpler, I always just ask the question. So it's like, can we have a flat tax? Great.
Yes.
But what do you?
Who does that benefit? Is always my question.
But here's the question. Here's the question.
Okay.
Flat tax, just mathematically.
Yes.
Okay, flat tax means this percent on a number. Tell me what that number is. Income.
It's income.
Okay. How do you define income?
But if I funnel my income through something else, then public.
If I say income is a W-2, then I'm going to have these people pay me on something called a 1099.
Right.
If I had say income is money, then I'm going to only do it via bartering. Because the way the tax law is currently written, the reason it's so complex is it's all about exceptions. The tax law basically says anything you make is taxed. Nothing is deductible. Done. Everything in the tax law is except for. Because
people lobby for those exceptions.
Yes.
Right.
Precisely. So and that's how it keeps getting more and more complicated. As soon as Congress passes, capital gains are going to be taxed, and capital gains are going to be taxed at a preferred rate. Suddenly people start calling interest capital gains. You're like, what they just changed the name. So it keeps getting more and more complicated. And the people who can afford attorneys and professionals to follow the law.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that they're paying all of them. There are some people who pay them to come up with stuff. They have the wealth. They'd rather pay their attorneys and accountants $30,000 than pay the IRS $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
So I would love for it to be simpler.
We're going to get out of the weeds a little bit and talk about entrepreneurship. And is there something that you wish you had known before you initially opened your own firm?
I can think of two things probably. The first is the difficulty it is finding the right fit for people to work with you and for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was
talent acquisition.
Talent acquisition. I was talking to another entrepreneur, and she has an unwritten rule. She will not hire anyone who has not been an entrepreneur on their own before.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Someone that understands your plight.
Yeah, the concept of finish it is different for someone who's an entrepreneur than someone who has worked in a corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
So it can leave at 5 and come back the next day.
Or they'll go, hey, how can I, my computer's not turning on. Okay.
You got to figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
That's what I'd have to do. You come in to me for help. I'm not an IT department. I might know, but figure it out. Take it to completion. Like, well, the client asked for this. Okay, find the answer. Finding people who, talent acquisition and people who are responsible for what they're doing instead of helping in what they're doing. So many people, they're helping you. They're helping you. But I don't need your help. I need you to be responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
Take it over the finish line. And the second thing that I knew very well because of the industry that I'm in, but 99% of entrepreneurs just don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
Your business is different than personal. You have a ton of different rules. It is irrelevant if you've made money or lost money. If you decided to function this year or didn't function this year. By becoming a business, you've created obligations that most people don't know that they created. And so there should be something somewhere that says, I need to have 5 to 10 grand to cover accounting, bookkeeping, tax, attorney. Mm-hmm. Whether I'm making money or not making money, just the start. Because all of these different government entities assume you know everything you're supposed to do. And no, there's no connectivity of the Secretary of State doesn't talk to the IRS, who doesn't talk to the county, who doesn't talk to the Department of Labor, who doesn't talk to sales tax. Nope, you just need to know this.
And that definitely, it doesn't sound like it's going to get any better for you.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I'm all about, if someone has figured out how to build a better mousetrap and that's their strength, yes, I am happy to learn to refer. Because like I said, I need, part of the leap is letting go of what I'm capable of but don't want to do. Right. I don't enjoy it and it's not my highest and best use. I'm capable. But I want to help other people be capable, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. As a giver. So as a woman entrepreneur in this, finance space, how have you navigated spaces, I guess, where maybe you were underestimated in what you can do, or maybe just outnumbered with those in the market along with you?
Thank you for asking me that. And I will say in accounting, and for a long time, I was specifically in a niche that was all high net worth, estate planning, I was always the only woman in the room. Always the only, I can't even say only Black person, only non-white at all. Like it was just very normal. That wasn't what bothered me. I didn't feel like I didn't belong in those spaces. It's just not an area that a lot of people go into. I'm the kind of person who I get offended and upset. How dare you think I'm not supposed to be here? Versus any type of self-doubt. And I think that ties to Sylvia, like you said, I'm a native Detroiter.
Yes.
And I grew up in a Black city. with educated people, a lot of educated people. You certainly had tons of positive, negatives. This, I agree with you. I don't disagree with you. What are you saying? You're an idiot. Why or why not? But it had nothing to do with my gender or my race. Nothing. You just had those conversations. Everyone respected what you had to say. They disagreed with what you were saying, not who was saying. The first time I worked outside of that area, and the first time I didn't know that that's why they were second guessing what I was saying, but I was just, I was floored. Like, I just said that. The first time someone else repeated what I said, I just said that 3 hours ago. I was so confused.
That is so annoying. Yeah.
Yes, but it has never happened to me before even. So I just, it took me a long time to figure out that that's what it was because it's not direct. I was just like, didn't I just say that? And so I think some of the tools that I decided that I'm going to use is know what I want the world to be, but accept how the world is.
Oh, wow. That's
so
powerful.
How do I get what I need? I can be mad all I want, but I need to get credit for this. So I have in some of my leadership positions as a chair, as whatever, there was a gentleman who was the administrator or something, a younger white guy. And I would ping him. I go, okay, I need you to send an email that says, Cecily just said that. Because I can't say it.
Wow.
It comes off as me being arrogant or boasting, or it's like we just had a big planning meeting and we all agreed on this, but somehow when I bring it up, you're being offensive and you're being,
But I want to level set because it also sounds like you had a relationship with this guy.
Absolutely.
And you were confident enough, or whatever the word is, if you're like, hey, Alex, or whatever his name was, hey, I'm going to need you to send that out again. And then Alex would comply.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we can sit here and act like that is so atrocious and it's awful, but it is real.
And it is atrocious and it is awful, but how do you move forward without functioning as the world is? It's like, the civil rights movement. There is no question. And when you look at the history books, like they'll ever publish them again, Rosa Parks was not the first person who refused to get up out of her seat. But you gotta pick who people are going to rally behind. It's not right. It's not fair, but it is.
That's what it is. Agreed.
And what advice would you give to someone who is feeling pulled to entrepreneurship?
I would let them know that just about every entrepreneur you've ever met has had starts and stops.
I like that.
To not think of those necessarily as a failure. I never feel like a successful entrepreneur. It is doing these types of talks and someone talking to me, I'm like, oh, I guess, okay, that wasn't bad. Because I'm perpetually unhappy with where I am and what I'm doing. I'm perpetually feeling like I should have done better. I'm perpetually thinking I could have made a better decision.
But that promotes growth, right?
I appreciate your saying that. I sometimes I wish I could follow the advice that I tell my clients, which is, we just said, okay, I've got all these letters after my name, right? Yeah. I have bounced a check. It is okay.
It happens.
My mind is blown. I'm like, what? Not Cecily.
Yes, I have. And I've gone, what the fuck?
It wasn't your fault, though. It couldn't have been your fault.
Oh, no, totally. Was my fault.
Bank error.
But because I also know I am never going to be perfect and we live in a financial world, I've also made sure I keep relationships with banks and specific banks. So I'm currently at what used to be a small bank. They're now a mid-sized bank. But literally, when that's happened, because it's happened more than once, I will get a phone call. They'll say, hey, before we turn this back, can you let me fix it? let me fix it. So to save me the embarrassment, to, whatever the case is, because they're like, I know you just forgot to do something. And I did. I'm sorry. And the one time I was buying something out and I wrote a check much bigger than I normally would. And they didn't refuse it, but they called, hey, you've never seen this kind of check before. And so so letting entrepreneurs know it is okay to make mistakes. You are going to make mistakes. And when you make a mistake, you can pull back and pivot. The only person who's going to beat you up about it is yourself.
Can I ask a question? Going back just a couple beats in terms of yourself as an entrepreneur. I think you said you choose to bank with a smaller bank. Is that advice that you would give to any entrepreneur?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Just for that relationship.
I'm a small person. I need to be with a small bank.
Got it.
I can think of my money as big all I want. But when I walk into Bank of America, whatever, they could care less about me. They have their standard stuff that this is how we do things. They don't make exceptions. They don't do I've gotten weird out of state checks or crazy stuff. And I've driven through drive-through and dropped it in. And the lady goes, hey, it's going to be a hold, except because that's their policy. And it was it wasn't the branch that I always go to. So she didn't know me by face. She didn't. And I was rushing. I was like, okay, whatever. I'll call them later. Within 30 minutes, my branch called me. Hey, we saw you made a deposit. It's fine. It's no hold. So yes, I definitely with that meets your needs. And what I mean by that is, in my experience, credit unions are great personal banks. They're not great business banks. They just don't have enough functionality and flexibility. I could be proven wrong, but so far, that hasn't been the case. But yeah, I'm a fan of small banks.
So I'm going to go one step further as an entrepreneur and for business, for those women out there. How do you choose? I'm not necessarily asking you to name your bank, but how do you choose? I mean, there are a lot of banks, and how do we know how to choose a smaller bank?
Excellent question. It's a little more difficult now because there's so few branches compared to what it used to be. I would ask your accountants, other entrepreneurs, and your attorneys who they bank with and if they like them or don't like them, because you will get an earful. They will tell you flat out when stuff is going wrong, and almost all of them will list the big banks. Well, don't do this one, don't do this. So it'll almost be a process of elimination. In your neighborhood and community where you live and where you work, look at those banks that you never looked at before that you drive past all the time. Because remember, these banks don't have the marketing money to tell you that they're fabulous. But I bet you if you walk in, hey, how can I help you? What's going on? I've sent pictures of the inside of my bank before, which is supposed to be illegal, but my bank is like, sure. I introduced my son to having an account, and they know him by name, and they were like, yes, it's fine, because I wanted to show them, see, you're fine. This is what you need to do. And people know you and like you, just like your client. People know and like you.
Right.
The same way.
And a lot of it is word of mouth. So great advice. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So Cecily, as we continue to talk, I guess what I'm wondering is there something that if we focus on people who are kind of middle income, not enough money to be super rich, but certainly, not poor, what are some things that we should be thinking about doing, especially from an estate perspective, if there's one or two things?
From an estate perspective, I would first, I hate the term estate, and I know that that's what the word is, it's estate planning, but the connotation implies wealth. When really it's, you're going to die, I'm going to die, we're all going to die, that's what happens. What do you want to happen? Do not let the expectation that I got to get it absolutely right stop you from making plans. So it feels so final and horrible and, but what if? You're absolutely right. But if you don't write something down in the right way, there is an estate plan for you. It's just the state's estate plan. There is one. One exists.
That's probate, correct?
No.
No.
Yes, you would have to go through probate, but even if you have an estate plan, you might still be going through probate. But what I mean is, if you have absolutely nothing written, Georgia, for example, I think this is still the rule. I'm going to use my family as an example. There are 3 of us: my husband, myself, and my son. And let's say we didn't write anything down, and I croaked. It gets divided between the spouse and the child. It doesn't automatically all go to the spouse. If it was 7 of us, me, my husband, and we had 6 children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Same. There's a requirement that the surviving spouse has to get at least 1/3, but the other third is split among the 6 children. I assure you, I would not want my 5-year-old getting any inheritance yet.
Right.
That's what the law is. And yes, the law is a minor, so they should have someone who is overseeing them. It does not have to be my spouse. The court gets to decide. So regardless of your wealth level, I'm saying wealth with a quote, think about what you want and make sure it is in writing, in the proper in writing. I both love and hate the current commercial that's out there for, I think it's Trust and Will's.
Trust and Will.
I love it because it's this whole sensitive time and moment. When I die, I really want you to have this car. It meant so much. And your grandmother wants, and this guy pops out of nowhere. No, doesn't count. The moon and everything. I love that. I hate that they're like, well, you can do it online. Oh my God.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So it's to do something, no matter what you have or think you don't have. Please write something down. The second thing is tell somebody.
Yeah.
Your family does not need to know your intimate financial details. I understand that, but they do need to know I got, several accounts. They're here, they're there. And here's what my plan is and what my documents say. Such and such is the executor. There have been so many family fights because mom owned all these houses and she said I could have them. No, the bank owned all those houses. There was mortgages on them. They were this. Nothing wrong with that, but people's impression of what they think versus what the actual facts are. And a lot of times those people who are in the middle and just starting to kind of make it out, you probably are getting to the point where you're starting to have assets, but they're encumbered by debt. Not saying that that's poor planning. It's a plan. Like, I know that I'm getting a mortgage on this house. I know that I'm getting this. I know that I'm still paying off my student loans. I know that I'm about to start paying for college. You're investing in stuff. So it doesn't look like you're upside down, but you're kind of upside down for a while. But if people don't know that, they think someone has done something wrong when it's the last surviving parent and the child who's been taking care of the parent uses all the assets to pay for the parent's care. The other kid's like, he spent all of mom's money. He spent all of dad's money. Because it costs $10,000 a month.
Exactly.
Yeah. Can I just that? Yeah. No, I think that is actually, just wonderful advice. And can I just add that it's important for us when we're making those plans and determinations and, estate planning to make sure it stays updated, because the plan that you had 10 years ago may change based on the dynamics in the family or wealth or whatever, that's currently happening. So that's great advice.
Absolutely right. And also know that that's another area that is not going to be perfect, but please do something. So there's so many things that change constantly. Like the standard estate document package includes a will, potentially a living trust, power of attorney, power of healthcare, et cetera. Various and sundry ways it's worded depending on your state. But because financial institutions, banks, investment brokers, et cetera, have been getting sued so much and in trouble so much, a lot of them have started not accepting standard documents. You have to have, I don't know this bank specifically, but Wells Fargo requires you have to have Wells Fargo's power of attorney. Bank of America says you have to have Bank of America's power of attorney.
Oh my.
Charles, thank you. I have no clue how people are supposed to execute this.
Wow.
But if you don't use someone who's in the industry, if you don't use an estate attorney, they won't be up on those changes.
Mm-hmm.
And the estate attorney isn't making up the complexity just because it's the fun thing to do. It's pissed them off too, but they got to do it. Because they're like, it's a power time. And I actually had a heated discussion with an estate attorney who had been drawing up my mother's information.
Mm-hmm.
And she had me on the call with him because, of course, I was my mother's financial planner.
Mm-hmm.
And he was adamant that, well, Miss Nash, you can just do a power of attorney. I said, excuse me, have you ever tried to execute a power of attorney?
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, I said, no. With your clients, when they become incapacitated, because a power of attorney actually is no longer valid when someone dies anyway. Mm-hmm. So that there's a whole different type of document for that. But let's assume that she's alive and things aren't going well and I need to go to the bank on her behalf.
Mm-hmm.
I kept asking him, I said, have you ever tried to do that? Well, you can just, I said, no. Pragmatically doing it. I'm not saying what the document says. I'm saying go to the bank with one of your clients one day and try and let them execute something on the power of attorney. They won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have got to scream, holler, and I know what the legal document says, but they're still in control of doing it. So in long story short, we opted to do payable on death accounts and also some joint accounts. That therefore, there's nothing the bank can do. My name is on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just finishing that process.
Let me clarify because I said that. Talk to someone before there are multiple ways of putting your name on an account.
Mm-hmm.
When you just walk into a bank and go, hey, I'm trying to help out mom, they'll go, oh, let me put your name on the account. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to have advice and someone telling you which way to do it. There's a payable on death. There's a transfer on death. There's putting your name on it so you can actually write checks on it or not. And all of those have estate consequences or plans. Like people who go, I'm just going to put my name on my mom's deed. Very bad idea. But the people at the deed office like, sure, here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Cecily, you're going down roads I need to explore a little bit further. What? Why is that a bad idea?
That's considered giving you a gift. So when your name gets added to your mom's account, your dad's account, whatever, as a signer, etc., generally speaking, that's considered a gift. Also, you now jointly own an account as it's earning interest, dividends, stock, etc., etc. It's yours now. There's
taxes.
Yeah, taxes. It is possible that it is not, like you all came to agreement that it's not, but you then put yourself in a position of proving the negative. I'm like, the account says it's your name. What? Okay. And also, there's so many types of ownership. Mm-hmm. And pieces of paper, a piece of paper, the little rectangle is only so big. Mm-hmm. It won't have the full name of, John Doe, Jane, Eartha Kitt, right of survivorship. That it's not going to have. So you never really know what it is. And the person who's helping at the bank, they're incentivized to open an account.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have so much to unpack.
We need a part two.
We may need to do a series with you as you're doing your new series every quarter or so. But on task with, what we're trying to build here is, sharing women's stories, which yours is beautiful. And you're clearly a leader in your field. What's your opinion? How can women leaders better support other women?
I think we as a gender can do a better job of accepting reality. Mm-hmm. What we were just talking about, Sylvia, when you said, Angela, you said that's horrible. We all know that you shouldn't have to get someone else to say something, but the fact is that you do. We don't do a great job of letting other women know that and respecting that and dealing with that. Mm-hmm. We want it to be a fair world so bad that we end up doing kind of the same things. We hold someone to a different standard. Like when we get into a room, we need to be in that room. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right.
So when we can hear some of those microaggressions, we need to be the ones that kick somebody under the table and go, did I just hear you when you said, even if you said it in a little innocent way, that couldn't have been what you just said. I was once in one of the executive committee meetings where we were just, and it was a very confidential meeting, and they were discussing the cost of healthcare at our firm. And one of the partners was like, we need to just quit hiring women. They keep getting pregnant, right?
Oh my! He said that out loud.
Trying to get sued. Yeah, but the way that our meetings were, you could say anything. That was the whole point.
It was open, right?
And I just said, you know what? Wait a minute. First off, it's all you male partners with wives who keep having kids. Your wives are staying at home. You got 3. You got 2. You got. Second, there were multiple guys that year. One guy had a pacemaker that had to be put in. Another guy must have thought he was 20 again and blew out his knee. But you're conveniently not thinking of those as impacting our healthcare costs. So stop. That is not an applicable excuse to not hire women. The women here are actually planning their pregnancies around what's going on because they are so committed to wanting to fulfill this job here. And so it's not that women, I think, need more mentors. Women need advocates. I need someone in the room because I'm not in the room.
Yes.
I need someone else in the room, be they male, female, whoever, that goes, this potential partner list or this potential promotion list. Why aren't any women listed? Someone needs to say that who's actually in the room and having as many mentors as you like. If you're not my advocate in that room screaming for me, what can you do? And as a woman, we can't scream for ourselves because it's viewed negatively.
Right.
Like,
especially Black women. I just
oh
have
my
to say
gosh.
that.
It's such a challenge finding a leadership style. The leadership books don't necessarily fit. I remember one of my partners was bringing me in on a high-end client. And the first thing he did was say, I always hire people smarter than me. She's great. And thank you. He set me up to succeed. I can't do that to somebody else. I can't use self-depreciating humor.
God, no.
Yeah.
I could never say I hire people smarter than me or, don't pay me. I can't do that. How do I get people to relax in a room when I can't use the leadership styles that are being taught,
You're very much about practicality. I love that. And it's real. I mean, so these are just really good lessons in that, I like and I'm sure I'll butcher it, but we can operate in a world where we have this, rainbows and bubbles type of idealistic ideology in terms of how the world should be, but we need to know how to navigate how the world currently is, where our current situation. So I think you've given us, dropped the pearls all throughout the interview. I'm just curious, with all that you do for everyone else, and we hear family also, your son and your husband, how do you practice self-care?
Excellent question.
Or how would you like to, if you're...
I will directly say I suck at.
Okay.
And I will also directly say, when choosing your circle, your ride or die, it's important to have people who tell you when you're wrong and point you in the right direction. So I have a circle of people who are more frustrated at me than I am at myself, that I have not been doing a good job of it. And I'm trying to, because of my personality, I'm trying to hold my feet to the fire so that I don't disappoint them more than even myself. But sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah. Accountability.
I need to be accountable, and it's to them. And it actually speaks to, like I mentioned, that's part of why we're having that event, the Moving Beyond Survival. How do you put practicality into the real life part of, it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to have all the money that you need, all the perfect physical health that you need, all of the family dynamics that you want. How do you still move forward? And I'm not great at that. Although I'm great at advocating for other people.
You're great at so many things. And Cecily, the Moving Beyond Survival, is that open to the public? So if someone wanted to sign up, is it in person, virtual? Tell us more about that and how we can do that.
Thank you for asking. Currently, it's in person. We're working on figuring out how to do it virtual.
Okay.
And it's just go to the welchcenter.com and there's an event page. So the welchcenter.com, where Welch stands for wellness equals lasting capital and health. So we're trying to do wellness and capital, and it's there. And it's $35 for, is it 5 hours, 6 hours, includes lunch, seminars, there'll be
That's a bargain.
There'll be
cheapest lunch. That's wonderful.
It's really meaningful. It was interesting, even though, like I said, I'm one of multiple speakers at this event. I kept sneaking in on other ones.
Love it. Very nice. Well, that sounds like something that I would love to attend. So I will keep my eye on that. And we can't thank you enough for sharing all your wisdom with us. Part of what I like to talk about in health style is kind of like 4 prongs of our health. Mental health, I think, is one of the number one. Physical health, emotional health, and I add on that financial health, because if your finances are in the pits, then it does affect everything else. And so you are speaking a language that a lot of us need to learn. So we truly appreciate what you're doing. And speaking to a larger audience, I completely get that. You know your stuff, but you just have that calling to share it with others. So I appreciate what you're doing and look forward to seeing more of what you have to offer.
Thank you. And I have to say, though, you all are doing exactly the same with this podcast, as well as I'm so excited about the book. So I'm hoping to find you personally, Sylvia, because I need you to sign 2 copies. I have a cousin who is entering medicine, and I have one that's already in, and I just know.
Thank you.
Thank you
both
for
of those young ladies will
the game plan.
Absorb the game plan and go, oh my God.
And we're coming up on our 2nd anniversary, so we'll have a show dedicated to that. Thank you, Cecily. You've actually a large part of helping us with that.
Yes,
that CPA piece. So we're very grateful to you and your advice.
I'm glad. That's a huge lift. That's amazing. That is just amazing, guys.
Thank you.
Well, Cecily, we're going to get you out of here. And thank you again for all of your pearls, and may you be well.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate the invite, and I had a great time.
Always. Thank you. May you be well.
Thanks.
So, Angela, we had such a rich conversation with Cecily. She left us with, no pun intended, a wealth of ideas. And a couple of my favorite takeaways from Cecily is certainly she is the accountant you can understand. She has trademarked that. Yes. But all of her advice was pragmatic and direct. And I definitely appreciate that. One of the other things I want to mention is she is from Detroit. For all our listeners and viewers and subscribers from Detroit, Cecily is from the D. And she is a hippiest capitalist. She's a hippiest capitalist,
yes.
Which I love, because me being from California and having some perhaps hippie tendencies, if we can say that, definitely toward making sure that the environment is taken care of. And I do recycle. And yet I do have a muscle car too. So
I probably always will.
That expression. Yes, I will. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what take homes resonated with you?
Oh, there was so much. I actually, as you can hear in the interview, asked a lot of personal questions that were, applied to me, which free advice. So I hope that our audience will glean some of that information. I took one of on a personal note from an entrepreneur standpoint, because she did share a lot of her experience going from, being in the corporate world to going out on her own, is the importance of working on your business, not just in your business, because you can get tied down in the mundane, even as you're building a business, and not kind of realize what your perspective should be, at least, part of the time. So working on your business, not necessarily just being the busy bee. It's important to put the extra time in for the particulars in your business. But that was one. The other one I liked was, she was very pragmatic in the way she approaches life, which I like, and practical, and she gives practical advice. But she knowing what you want the world to look like, but accepting it for what it is now, and operating in the now. And so that's just key. And, part of what I get frustrated about sometimes is talking about, how unfair things are, and harping on that point without talking about practical solutions and working towards the solution and making a difference in the problem. I mean, I can use maternal morbidity and mortality as an example of, talking about the problem is so important, that we've sounded the alarm to know, that there's still an ongoing overabundance of maternal morbidity and mortality in the U.S. compared to, all other wealthy, nations. But more importantly, in the, Black community, 3 times to 4 times as high. So we can say that over and over and over again, but what can I actually tell you right now that before we fix all of the problem, what you can do in your life, and, being the healthiest you can be before, you approach pregnancy, and how to kind of combat some of the risk factors that might be involved to making your pregnancy healthy. So that's from my perspective, and part of what I like to share. But just being practical about what we're currently living in, but also giving some practical advice on how to move forward, if that makes sense.
It does.
A little bit redundant there.
No, that is great. Just my paper is full. I always take notes during our Boss Leap conversations.
Yes.
And I have just a ton of things that she shared, and I'm excited for our listeners to hear the full interview, and to go back and to listen to other interviews. It looks like we're doing a bit of a block on finances, and
which
wealth
is good.
Creation.
We can't get enough of it.
Exactly.
And I'm going to add, I thought just from what she spoke about was practical for all income levels. She spoke about the importance of having a financial plan from the very beginning to the upper levels of income, which I think is so important. So,
and just getting advice, because even if your income isn't exactly where you want it to be, you still need kind of that pragmatic advice on, well, how do I do things? So how do I set up an account, as estate planning, as an example. She spent a lot of time talking about your family member's bank account, and, well, how do you want to be listed on that? That's just practical advice that you have to have. It was. Some of it was about to sail over my head, but my take home is you need to have reliable, in our world, we say evidence-based information, but we need to know what the rule is right now at this moment. And then we need to be prepared to pivot when the rule changes, and having that information. So your dad's book is an example, his notebook with all the information. So as he updated his estate, that information was in there and readily available.
Yeah. It's a gift to your family. So this is a great episode. So we look forward to maybe more information coming from Cecily in the future. And to our audience, we're grateful that you're here with us along for the journey. And if you have anything that you would love for us to talk about, or anything that you'd love to share, please reach out to us. Our website is bossleappodcast.com. Please share the podcast with your friends and family, and
share,
YouTube.
Subscribe, and follow.
Definitely. And share with us. But until we meet again, may you be well.
May you be well.
That's a wrap on another episode of Boss Leap. May this conversation enlighten your path toward personal growth and professional empowerment. For more thought-provoking and eye-opening discussions like this one, head to our website at bossleappodcast.com. Always remember to celebrate your wins and trust yourself. A positive mindset can push you out of your comfort zone and into far greater heights. Until next time, may you be well.
Before we go, there's one more thing the lawyers have asked us to include. You know, it's the legal language. And you know how doctors love lawyers. This podcast is presented only for educational and entertainment purposes. Although we are doctors, on this show, we are just your friends. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. Understood? Awesome. We'll see you in the next episode.